Yeah, we're going to. We've got Mark Packer here on the phone. So, from host of College Sports Today from SiriusXM, and Mr. Packer, thanks for coming on with us. You came with us in November, so thanks again for the time. We appreciate it.
Anytime, but don't call me Mister. I'll never do it again.
All right, Pac-Man. How about that?
That works.
Okay, great. And then, well, looking ahead, I just want to compliment you guys on the college basketball coverage. I know that most of it's college football. You know, most people talk about that year-round, but I thought with Coach Tom Brennan, he was always hilarious. It always made me laugh. I mean, it was great. You guys did an awesome job with that, I thought.
Well, I appreciate that. He's a great guy. We got a really good group of all of our co-hosts, whether it be football season, baseball, basketball, whatever, and they make it fun. And I thought the tournament was great and so unpredictable. I mean, who in the world would have ever thought UConn was the team that was going to cut down the nets in Jerry's world? But it was a great tournament, and again, you just never know what's going to happen with March Madness.
That's right. And looking ahead with the college football season, really not, I guess, 4 months away, not that far off in the distance, and that's always on people's mind. But with this new playoff coming up with the 4 teams, kind of what are your thoughts, and just, I mean, what are you kind of looking forward to seeing with the selection committee and things like that?
Well, it's a completely different lay of the land. I mean, I don't think any of us really know what we're going to see. I am excited about it. I think it's going to be great in due time. It'll probably take a couple of years to tweak everything. It won't be perfect at first. But the fact that we're sitting there at the end of the rainbow with 4 teams going to be playing 2 national semifinal games and then a national championship, I think it does open up the doors a little bit for everybody. And I think strength of schedule is going to be a major part from everything I hear. We got to wait for the committee to kind of give us a little bit more details, other than the fact that they're going to announce their first poll or their first rankings in the end of October, which I think is a great idea, because I've always harped on the fact that, preseason polls are great. It gives all of us talking idiots something to talk about between now and kickoff. But to be honest with you, it's kind of a detriment when you start to determine who are the best teams. I mean, you got to let everybody play a little bit before you realize who can play, who's going to be a disappointment, who's better than you advertise. So I think being able to see 2 months of football before you come out with your first poll, I think makes a ton of sense. So from that perspective, I think the committee's off to a good start. But again, we got to see how this works. I don't think anybody has the answer on May the 2nd. But I'm excited about it. I think it'll be great for college football in the big picture.
Really, totally. And looking at the selection committee, is this kind of a concern with some current ADs of schools on there? I know Dan Radakovich is on there, the Arkansas athletic director. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you have any concerns with that at all?
I don't. I mean, I think the people that are on that list, including Condoleezza Rice, I think that they're there for the best interest of college football. And I do think, again, we got to go through the process once before you can say thumbs up, thumbs down. But I think the people that are in place, I respect all their opinions. I mean, Barry Alvarez, to me, is one of the smart guys on the planet. And you mentioned Jeff Long, who's the chairman. And, he had a statement this week, which I actually disagreed with. I've always been impressed with what he's done at Arkansas, given all the headaches he's had to go through and figure out. But he said something the other day about, really, it's going to be up for us to find the 4 best teams, not necessarily the 4 that are the most deserving. And to me, that was a flag, because I think that, if you're one of the power leagues, hey, you love all that. But, I mean, what about the Northern Illinois and the Boise States and the Fresno States and all these teams we've seen the past couple of years that have had great years, go 13-0? I mean, I think when you make a statement like that before we even see the process, I don't think I'd have gone down that road. But it will be interesting to see where they go. And, again, we can speculate like crazy for the next 4 or 5 months, but we've got to go through it first before we realize, hey, this worked or this didn't work. And I suspect it will be good, but they'll also have to tweak something after year 1 and 2.
Right, and what's been a lot of talk on your show this week and just around the country, kind of college football-wise, with the SEC voting for the 8-game schedule, the 6-1-1. I'm not being an SEC homer. I don't see with a lot of the SEC schools having tie-ins with ACC schools. I mean, I thought it was a pretty good model. I mean, about what are your thoughts on it?
Well, it has been the hot topic. In fact, the Pac-12, we had Mark Helfrich, the head coach at Oregon, on yesterday, and I love him to death. And the Pac-12 coaches had their teleconference yesterday, and they took some shots at the SEC, basically saying you must be afraid to play anybody. I think and I said this during the week in regards to the SEC's decision, I think if you're Mike Slive or you're in the inner circles of the Southeastern Conference, their decision made a ton of sense to me. I mean, the object here is to not only get one, but in the SEC's case, multiple teams in the national semifinal. The best way to do that is not to eat your young. I mean, not to beat up on each other. So why not stick at 8? Because you got to figure the strength of the schedule top to bottom with so many teams that they're going to have in the top 25 should be sufficient enough, even though we still have games like Clemson and South Carolina and Florida State and Florida and Georgia Tech and Georgia and now Louisville and Kentucky, that they should be able to stand on their own by their own conference play. And they're taking that risk. So I think if you're in the SEC inner circle, that decision was a no-brainer and a smart one. I think if you are outside the SEC and have kind of had this enough of, hey, I'm sick and tired of hearing about these guys, you sit there and you take shots at them by going, hey, listen, the Big 12 plays 9. The Big 10 is going to go to 9 conference games by 2016. The Pac-12 already plays 9. The ACC is trying to figure out what they're going to do here in the next 2 weeks. It should be apples to apples, oranges to oranges when you make the comparison of all these power leagues across the country. So I think depending on where you stand and where your allegiance is, you'll come up with an answer on that. But if it turns out that the SEC, by going and staying with that 6-1-1 format, if it turns out that their strength of schedule down the road with this playoff isn't strong enough, they will certainly have the flexibility to go to 9 games. So that's why I thought Mike Slive and the SEC made a really smart decision.
Right, and what do you make of the kind of Les Miles and his LSU athletic director and the old ball coach Steve Spurrier's comments about the SEC schedule, how it's been a little slighted, the LSU having to play Georgia and Florida 19 times, I think, and Alabama playing them 8. What do you make of those?
They're right.
Yeah.
They're 1,000% right. I mean, but, you know, as Steve Spurrier said the other day, nothing's fair in college football. So, you know, unless you're the Big 12 and you're going to play every team in your league, and they're the only ones of the power league that does that, and where there's no unbalanced schedule, there is no easy answer. But I think Joe Oliva, the athletic director at LSU, I think Les Miles, the head coach, I'll have Steve Spurrier's comments jumping on their bandwagon going, hey, if this is all about being fair, then we're not doing it the right way. They are 1,000% right. And I do think that the one model that was kicked around that Joe Oliva had mentioned on his press conference earlier this week made a ton of sense. That, hey, SEC, if you're so interested in traditions, and I applaud you for it because in this day and age we've seen too many traditions go by the wayside because of money. Hey, if you want to keep Alabama and Tennessee, great. If you want to keep Auburn and Georgia, great. But here's what you should do, and this is what Joe Oliva said, and I think he's right. Let's make everybody else rotate, meaning LSU doesn't have to play Florida every single year. There's not a permanent team that the East plays the West. Everybody's just going to be on a rotating basis with the exception of Alabama, Tennessee, and Auburn, Georgia. To me, that made a ton of sense. You could still keep traditions. You still rotate the schedule. Everybody gets a chance to see everybody more often. And, you know, you still got to win a bunch of games in your side of the division on top of it. So, but again, the SEC, a bunch of smart guys, they figured out the BCS formula before anybody else did, and obviously had terrific teams and took care of business. So we'll see how the new system works. But again, it's not fair with what they did for teams like LSU or anybody else for that matter. But you got to play them and you got to go win. It's like anything else in life. If you're going to be a champ, you can't backdoor anybody. You got to go get it.
Right, and what do you make of all this Jameis Winston case? Obviously not the best news for Florida State and the ACC as a whole. No,
embarrassing is what it was. And listen, I like the kid. I had a chance to interview him right after what Florida State did to Clemson last October. I mean, obviously the kid's an amazing talent, wins the Heisman Trophy. Florida State, incredibly talented team, wins the national championship, but there's no excuse for stupid, and that's exactly what that is. I mean, you cannot, under any circumstance, I don't care if you're a Heisman winner or a thug on the street, you don't walk into a grocery store and walk out with $32.72 of crab legs and crawfish. You go, oh, yeah, I forgot to pay. I don't care how old you are, where you're from, what your economic background is. That's just stupid, and it's inexcusable, and I know he's apologized for it, but you know, after the alleged rape incident, which happened in December of 2012, last summer we had the BB gun incident at the Burger King, and now we got, hey, we're going to Publix to get our free crab legs. That's 3 flags. And, I mean, the kid's a terrific player. Nobody's going to take that away from him, but, man, alive. We jumped all over Johnny Manziel, the national media did last year, for his decisions. it's one thing to do something like you may say may not be smart. It's another thing to break the law. And what Jameis did this past week was absolutely, totally inexcusable and a total embarrassment to not only him, but also Florida State.
Right, agree with that. And looking at the ACC again, I mean, Louisville obviously coming into the conference is really going to help strengthen, I think, the football side and basketball side. And what do you make of Clemson going? You being a famous alum here at Clemson, it's going to be a much tougher schedule looking to 2014.
No doubt about it. I don't know if I'd say, by the way, I don't know if I would say I'm a famous alum. I am a proud alum, needless to say, but there is no question from an athletic standpoint, Louisville joining the league helps basketball immensely, and it's going to help football immensely. And, you know, everybody will take shots at the ACC nationally who really doesn't pay attention. But you know what? When you look at the Atlantic Division and you see Florida State as loaded as they are, you see the great job Dabo's done to get Clemson in their position, and now Bobby Petrino coming back to Louisville. Those three teams, 1, 2, 3, whatever order you want to put them in, that's pretty strong for any division of any conference anywhere in the country. And you know, and all of a sudden, if an NC State or a Boston College or Wake Forest happens to get their act together, or Syracuse, hey, that's just adds, you know, fuel to the fire. But those three teams, Florida State, Louisville, and Clemson, are awfully good. And I think it's going to be terrific for the ACC. It will upgrade, like you said, hoops immediately and football as well. So, again, I think the ACC probably lucked out, and that worked out to perfection. So I think it would be cool to have them in the league.
Right. And before we let you get out of here, just talk a little bit about the all-in ball that Coach Sweeney and them had here, and you had your show here. And when will your camp tour start? Is that in August?
Yeah, no, I don't have the dates yet. They won't let us know until the very last second and all that stuff. But normally we do our SiriusXM camp tours around the country, and for about a 3-week period, we're all hopscopping all over the country and just really getting just awesome treatment, talking to coaches and players and getting the tours from all the alums. I mean, it's really a cool thing. I love it. It's my 3 favorite weeks of the year. So we won't know that until probably later in the summer. It's normally late July when they finally let us know where we're going and what dates and all that kind of stuff. And as for Dabo's event, man, what an incredibly cool thing. They, Dabo and his wife, Kathleen, have really done an awesome job. And, you know, you see coaches get involved all the time. A lot of times they don't look for fanfare. A lot of times they roll up their sleeves. But the thing I can honestly tell you, after being involved with the last couple of years, it's almost a personal goal for the Sweeney family to be a part of giving back. And there's a lot of guys that give you lip treatment with all that stuff, but man, they are speaking from the heart. And you know, the raise, I think, over $350,000 a couple weeks ago. It was just an honor to be a part of it, and they do such an awesome job. I mean, everything about it is first class. The people that come back. The representatives of Clemson University, former players, administrators, everything else that are there to support it, the fans, the money that's raised for local charities. I mean, Dabo and his wife, Kathleen, have really done an incredibly cool thing. And there's a lot to be proud of about that deal. I mean, it really is first class.
Well, thanks again for taking the time this morning. We really appreciate it. And tell people again where they can find you on Sirius and then on Twitter also.
Well, Twitter is easy. It's at Mark Packer. You almost can't screw that up. And if you have SiriusXM Radio, you can catch me every afternoon from 3 to 6 Eastern Time on Channel 91. And it's a college sports show, and we have a good time. You never know who's going to call in, guest-wise, and the callers are nuts. And, again, when we get a little bit closer to football season, it really gets out of control. So.
Much better than that Feinbaum show. So.
Well, I'm a fan of Paul, personally. Now, his show's a bunch of knuckleheads, too, but Paul's a good guy.
Yeah.
And of course, he's carrying that SEC banner, so I know when that SEC network unveils, that'll be intriguing to see how he makes that transition. But he's good people, and so I wish him the best as well.
All right. Thanks again, Mr. Pac-Man. We appreciate it.
There you go.
Thank you.
Good thing you called it. That would have been the last interview we ever did.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, have a good weekend.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's Mark Packer, or Pac-Man. We appreciate him being on.